So here we are on step 6 of the hero's journey. Allies, enemies, and tests. If it sounds dramatic, not so much. It's just the things that may come across our path in life or our inner thoughts that either push us towards our big dreams or stand in between our big dreams. So today we're going to just go through some things that may occur on your journey that are either helping you or holding you back. So our allies are either our thoughts, people, tools, or something that support us. They're working to help us along our journey. Our enemies are obviously our limiting beliefs, our negative thoughts, toxic people, toxic circumstances that stand between you and the things that you want. And the test are the things that make you prove to yourself that you really want this. It challenges you. It makes you make a choice between the enemy and the ally. If you're new to the channel, I'm Sherry from SherryLouMiller.com, and we have been working through the 12 steps of the hero's journey. And today we are on step 6, as I mentioned, allies, enemies, and tests. So let's get started going through a little bit more of an explanation of what this step is and also how it has influenced my journey. So in today's video, I'm not going to really focus on the external things that test us or your external allies, which might be friends or something like that, or your enemies, which could be a toxic situation. We're going to focus on ourselves because throughout this series, I've been showing that either whether you're changing your life, building a business, we're doing it from the inside out. We're changing the internal so that we can impact our external situation. So our allies are going to be our positive thoughts, the things that guide us, that keep us on our path. Our enemies are, again, our limiting beliefs, the thing that's hold us back or causes us to have uncertainty, doubt, or fear. All of those negative things that sometimes keep us running in place from moving forward. And then passing the test is choosing between the ally and the enemy. So in dealing with that test, we have to make a choice. Are we going to let the positive thoughts lead, or are we going to let our negative self-doubt guide us? And in making that choice, if we start to lean into more positive, we see that the negative things that may be flowing through our thoughts or what we see as a challenge or something like that, it helps us to reframe it as growth, as an opportunity in our life. We start to, during this test phase, we're growing into a different version of ourselves because we're starting to lean into the ally, the unconditional love that we have for ourselves, our inner thoughts. So the test part of step 6, allies, enemies, test, means that you're going to pause, you're going to take a beat, you're going to reframe these negative thoughts that are maybe you're on a loop with, and you're going to start to step forward. You're going to just start to take one small action at a time, because sometimes, as I've mentioned repeatedly, if we're trying to do too much at once, it becomes overwhelming. And if we're used to putting more emphasis on the negative than the positive, then it may be harder to move away from the enemy, the negative thoughts, the limiting beliefs, than it is to step into or partner with your allies, which are your positive thoughts, the things that tell you, you can do this, you got this, girl, go for it. Don't let that stop you. Like, we want to lean into those thoughts. We want to lean into small actions that help us move in a positive direction towards the vision. Because the vision, today it may be one thing, and as people, as individuals, we're constantly evolving, so the vision may change. So we have to learn to manage the test phase, to choose, when we make the choice, to choose our allies over the enemy. So in my case, I probably have 2 separate phases of that, because initially in 2019, when I left my corporate job to start my Etsy shop, I was driven by my allies. They were supporting me. I didn't really doubt that I could do it. But then in 2020, when we went through the pandemic and things started to happen that were outside of my control, there is a little bit of uncertainty as to whether or not I should have stayed in the comfort of my corporate job. And I have to work through that. I can't let those thoughts of second guessing, because I don't live a life full of regret. I don't want those thoughts to become dominant. I want to still keep going, even though I'm being tested and having to make a choice to keep moving, to stay positive, to allow the positive thoughts, my allies, to drive me, to keep me moving, rather than let my negative thoughts overshadow that and have me stuck in this loop of uncertainty and doubt. And it's not always an easy task. So if you can see throughout the journey, we're in the ordinary world. We know it's something we don't want. And then we decide to step into what it is we really want. Well, it's not going to be a straight line. It may not even be an easy thing. It just really depends on each person. But the thing is, as you move through each step of the hero's journey, and in this step, you're having to identify what are my allies, what are my enemies, and then you have to make a choice. Through life, that happens. We're going to be thrown curves, and you can't lose focus. The goal is to just stay on the path. Keep the vision within sight. Like, what are you moving towards, and what is really going to help you to move towards that? So I think I would have to say that those were my tests initially, when the business first started to suffer in sales and revenue. And I had to rely on personal savings, take a side gig, drive Amazon Flex, all to really just keep me stable financially. But I didn't want to worry, because worry is negative emotion. It's just going to attract more negative emotion. So you've heard this story, because throughout that's my journey, like reaching the point of finding my ally that could overshadow the enemy, the negative thoughts, and from that move me forward. So my enemies were obviously my internal thoughts. As I began to journal and focus more on the positive and the overall vision, then I can make a choice every day to choose growth and opportunity over the uncertainty of fear, whether or not this is going to work. I can see that this test is to see, do you really want to be an entrepreneur, or are you just going to fold when things get challenging for you? Or are you going to find a way to keep it going? If this particular thing isn't working for you anymore, what will work for you? That's the test. It challenges you to think outside the box. Okay, the vision is you are an entrepreneur. And then what are you going to do to stay on that path? Are you going to wallow in self-pity? Are you just going to be like, oh, why are these things happening to me? Or are you going to take a stand and like, this is my vision. How can I make this work? Today, I'm going to choose to take a small step and do this. I'm going to do this to move in the direction of my dream and my vision. So I have to say that through the journaling, like I said, it helped me focus more on the positive than the negative, which got me on track. And it also helped me to gain clarity that even outside of my digital shop, which was financial, as I mentioned before, they were more financial tools. But the self-discovery journey, I was really enjoying. And just because I had already staked my claim that I was going to do digital products, I allowed myself to entertain the thought of pivoting again, because I went from physical products, print on demand, to digital products, to now they're still going to be digital, but it's actually going to be a combination. I will start out with digital journals, and it will progress to physical journals. But I allow myself to do that in small steps. I mentioned last week, taking small steps every day towards that. And what can I do today that's going to get me closer to it's not an end game because, like I said, this is a journey, so it's constantly evolving. But my vision right now, what's going to get me there? So, in order to keep me on that path of what would get me there, I had to become my own cheerleader. I told you I did the prosperity challenge. I was journaling. I had to do things to stay positive. So the enemies, the negative thoughts and limited beliefs, they're real. But the thing is, you can't ignore them. You have to address them. You have to take time to reflect. Where are they coming from? How can you reframe them? You have to look at the process and see what's working, what isn't working. You just have to pause. And on your next step, you just try to do better than the day before. And that's kind of where I started to build momentum. I started to get into my rhythm. I started to feel like this is it. Flow with this, go with this. And on the days when you're feeling, girl, what are you doing? This is totally different from anything you've done. You don't have the skills to do that. You don't know anything about printing a journal and importing it from China or wherever, or printing it inside the US. You don't know anything about that. You already got this going. Just build that up. Like, why are you doing something different? When those thoughts start to come in, you focus on the vision again. You align with your ally. You allow that unconditional love that you have for yourself, that vision that you have that you know it wouldn't have been put in your heart if you weren't supposed to live it. You allow that to take control. And that's what I did. I stepped into that feeling. Now I'm just getting started. So is it going to work? I don't know. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing every day to take a small step towards that vision, because not doing it is worse. Not knowing it is worse. So when you're confronted with your allies, your enemies, and you're tested, you have to deal with the positive thoughts and you have to deal with your negative thoughts. And every day, you may have to make a choice. Which one are you going to choose today? Are you going to get stuck in that loop of telling yourself you're not good enough, you don't have enough money to do this? Or are you going to take a chance on yourself, on your dream, on your vision? Before we move into our homework, our 5 journaling prompts, I wanted to mention that I created a free resource, because sometimes, depending on whether we're a person that focuses more on the negative or whether we're someone who constantly tries to stay positive. And usually there's a balance. But I created, like I said, a free resource. It's a journal that just allows you to write down every day one good thing, one memorable moment for that day. So it's for the first quarter, which the first quarter of every year usually represents, it's a new year, new things can happen, new visions. It's a time of new beginnings. So that's kind of the theme of this one. It's not really elaborate, it's pretty basic journal that you just write down every day, 1 or 2 sentences, your most memorable moment. It can be as simple as you talk to your friend on the phone, you were just laughing and joking. It doesn't have to be anything significant, because that's the purpose. It's the little moments in life. And as we start to step in those and appreciate them more, I think we'll learn to honor our allies more than entertain the enemies. So if you want to check that out, the link will be in the description below. So let's get started now with our homework, the 5 journaling prompts. So first, what's one belief or thought that has kept you moving forward recently? How can you build on that? What's one thought you want to let go of because it no longer serves you? What's one challenge you're currently facing, and how are your inner thoughts helping you or holding you back from moving through it? What's one small moment that you feel strong about recently? How can you hold on to that feeling? What's one thing that's holding you back because it's not perfect yet? What would happen if you just started it? So before I close out, you'll remember in my journey, I talked about how I was affected by analysis paralysis. I kept overthinking the customer journey instead of just going ahead and creating a project or product. I had to see the entire thing from A to Z, and it just kept me from moving forward. And now that I've created that and released it, it's like not a burden, but I've started to do small things every day rather than just in that loop every day of trying to see the entire vision. So that is a form of an enemy. That was a limiting belief of I needed it to be a certain way before I could put it out when it's digital. So if I put it out and the customers had suggestions or whatever, it's somewhat of an easy fix versus a physical product. And that's the purpose of me doing digital products first, because I had never done or I have never created a journal. I've created planners before. So I can get customer feedback before I actually go to print on a physical journal that I have to import, because it's going to be costly to do that. And I need to not have it perfect, but I do need to have an understanding of what my audience is looking for when I take the step for my flagship product. So I think that particular prompt, give it some thought, because most of us probably get held up there. Like we don't really want to take that first step. But you know, there's the Martin Luther King quote, you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. I think a lot of us will start trying to see that entire staircase before we take the first step. And that is an enemy. So address it, whatever your enemies are, address them, reframe them, and step into growth opportunities or growth mindset and move out of the lack. Don't forget, if you want to stay on this journey with me, to hit the notification bell so that you're notified when I record step 7. If you found value, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel, because that helps me. As well as, please, if you know anybody that needs to take a look at their own, become the hero of their own journey, share this video. Happy New Year, and I'll see you next time.